I'm Doug Sass. I'm going to be talking a little bit with Bill Thiel, Chief Financial Officer of Wisconsin Plastic Products. We're going to discuss a little bit about how the economy has affected a little bit with the average sized companies. Let's start off with, tell me a little bit about your education experience for the industry you are in.
I'm a certified public accountant. I've been that since 1982. I was in public practice for a number of years, and I was the outside accountant for Wisconsin Plastic Products. About 5 years ago, I became the CFO here and deal mostly with the financial operations of the company.
What do you think changes have occurred in your industry, your position in the last 5 to 10 years?
I think the toughest part was coming out of the 2008 recession when economic times were tough, where we had to deal with some tight money constraints and cut back on personnel. And now we're going into a future where we could be heading into an inflationary period in the future, and that's going to also become very difficult for us.
How are your prices set for products and services?
We pretty much have a costing system where we determine our overhead and add to that our material costs along with our wage base is how we basically calculate our product. Because we are a custom extruder, our customer also somewhat has cost controls on us because our parts go into their overall product, so we have kind of a two-edged sword there. Is we have to come up with our prices, but they also have to be within reason for the customer.
How is productivity measured in your business, and by whom?
We cost out everything. My assistant does the costing on that. We have line workers who keep track of materials that go into the product, keep track of their time, and we cost that out based on every job so we can see how productive we were on that job. We've got an estimated cost on what that job should be, and we compare those two, and if we have problems, we look into why those products did not come out in a proper manner as far as costing, etc.
Okay. What are your customers' preferences and tastes, and how has this changed over time?
For the most part, I think a lot of the customers are going into more color-oriented stuff. We're becoming very big in color as time goes on. That's probably one of our biggest changes as far as customer orientation.
How do you determine how to set your wages?
Basically, wages are a combination of what the company can afford, being competitive with similar companies in the area, the overall economic and economy in the country as to how things are going, length of time the individual has been in service with the company. So that's kind of the stuff that we look at here at Wisconsin Plastic Products.
What are some of the roles that your federal and state and local government play in your business and industry?
Well, we've got several roles that they play. One is on the federal side, you've got several departments that affect manufacturers or employers. You have OSHA, who watches for safety and regulations, which we have to adhere to. In addition, you also have the EPA, because of the fact that the industry we deal with is plastics, and plastics has got a reputation for not necessarily being very environmental friendly. So we've got that issue we have to deal with. In addition, you have the federal government and the Internal Revenue Service part of it as far as the tax law and how to operate the business in the most effective manner tax-wise. In addition, you have various state regulations that relate to the environment and state tax law. And locally, we've got basically mostly just like fire prevention type things, fire safety, locally that's inspected. So the government has a huge effect that way. In addition, from the standpoint of Congress, they've had various things introduced as far as banning certain plastics. They've got certain chemicals that go into plastics that have been banned, and we have to come up with alternative solutions to that. So government is a big factor in our industry.
Did some of these federal and state local governments actually come through your plant to inspect to make sure that you are following their certain guidelines or rules?
Well, we have UL inspectors come in to verify product that's being used that it goes into electrical processes. In addition, we've got the local fire departments come in and do an inspection on for fire prevention type things and safety in our building. So they do actually come in and check on various things with our company.
Who do you think you would deal with the most, the federal, the state, or the local government?
I would say generally the local government more than anyone else.
Like by your city, or who actually is your local government?
City of Plymouth.
City of Plymouth. What are some of the factors that you would consider when you hire employees?
Well, I think we consider experience is a big thing. Is there any experience within the plastic industry? Mechanical aptitude is very big with us, as we have everyone do a test to check on that. In addition, we like to look at previous employment and as to, if they showed up to work every day, past history of employment. We like to look at the individual as to do they have other outside interests that they participate in, and that means they are involved in things and sort of things. So that's kind of what we look at when we look at hiring people.
With the economy the way it is right now, and kind of a recession that we have, is there a better choice of employees out there? Is it easier to find a better employee, or is it around the same? Right
now, it's very difficult to find qualified employees in our industry. It's very difficult. It was a lot easier back in 2009 when we were in a recession, but now that we've kind of come out of it, it's very difficult finding qualified employees.
Okay. How would you describe how global economics would affect your business, and if so, in what ways?
Global economics affects us a lot. We've got a lot of competition from overseas, mainly China and India, for making cheap plastic products, which affect us greatly. We at Wisconsin Plastics, we try to make things that are a little more difficult so we can avoid some of that competition, but we can't completely. I mean, the one advantage we have is if it's going to be sold in the United States, is the cost of transportation from China and India has gotten substantial. Our new heavy competitor is going to be Mexico because of transportation costs being low and extremely cheap labor. So I'm looking at Mexico as being our main competitor in the future situation.
What do you guys do to try to cut costs to compete with the companies that are going overseas that can make a product cheaper by sending it over here than what we do in America?
We have to attempt to be just more efficient, to run things faster, test our quality online versus after the fact so that we can get the product into the box and not have to worry about quality things. Those are the type of things we try to do to hopefully compete with that. But the main thing we try to do is make things that are more difficult that cannot be made overseas easily.
With the country being in recession the way we have in the last 5 or so years, what ways has your company gone to make it in the times that are tough?
Well, during the recession, we had a cutback on employees. We reduced our number of employees. We reduced the hours that we had employees working. In addition, all salaried staff took reductions at that time. In addition, we also, try to go out and find new business where it is available to keep things going. So those are kind of things you have to do. You have to tighten your belt during a recession.
Another thing with the upcoming changes with the healthcare, with the Obamacare, how will this affect the way you hire your full-time and part-time employees?
Well, the important thing is we're trying to stay below 50 employees as part of the Obamacare package. That's kind of a magical number. So right now we're somewhat on a hiring freeze to stay underneath that 50 until all the information regarding the new law is complete and accurate as far as coming out. Eventually, excuse me, the new law is going to create a situation where you have to add your part-time people to become full-time people. So we might just add some part-time people as operators just to equal some full-time people later on.
All right. Thank you very much, Bill. Just to get a little more broad idea how economics has affected your average size industries, I'm going to speak a little bit with Ryan Zalp. He is the plant manager for Wisconsin Plastics. Ryan, what's some of the education that you've gone through for your industry?
I graduated from Moraine Park Technical College with a 2-year degree in design and also a minor in industrial engineering.
Okay. What are some of the prices set for your products and services?
We determine pricing based on company overhead, the cost of raw materials, the labor to produce the product, and then on a great day, we try to get a profit margin in that as well. Business overhead is pretty much a pretty standard number for us, depending on business growth. But raw materials can really fluctuate, so we're constantly adjusting product prices to go along with increasing or decreasing prices of raw materials.
So like the longer you would run a product, the more profit you would make on it?
Typically, yeah, length of extrusion run, we definitely prefer a long run, although our quotes are set up in a manner that even on a small run, we need to be very efficient, but still we should be able to attain a small margin even on a very short run.
So how would productivity be measured in your business, and by whom?
We take a look at inputs ahead of the production run, and we kind of forecast what kind of raw materials are necessary, what kind of labor will be necessary, and we go ahead and do the production run, and then we'll take a look at the actual inputs that were required, and then monitor our efficiency based on how those two tie together.
What are some of the things that you use to measure your production?
We take a really close look at time involved in producing the product. Before the run ever starts, we have an allotted amount of time for the setup of our machines, and then an allotted amount of time for the production of the product. We take a really close look at that time that's involved, and we know that if we're doing things at the time that we quoted, chances are we're going to have performance to plan.
What are some of the customer preferences and tastes, and how have they changed over time?
Customers these days are demanding super fast turnarounds on products. Order placed on Monday, lots of times we'll see demands that the order ship by Wednesday. So we've had to react to that over the last few years. Sometimes it's a matter of carrying inventory. Other times it's a matter of just being really efficient with the setups and quick startups.
Do you deal with a lot of local or out-of-state customers?
It's a real broad range. We have a good number of manufacturers, a good number of OEMs that we supply to that are here in the Midwest. But then we also ship overseas to Italy and into Mexico.
Okay. What new technologies have been introduced in your business?
Over the last few years, we've seen a real growing need to work with highly engineered resins. We're doing some work with some fiberglass filled plastics, and provides incredible strength and real low shrink properties. We've also looked at incorporating metal embedments within our products to make them very rigid. LED lighting has been an area that has really taken off within the last couple of years, and we are at the forefront there in developing new products for that market. And then also within the last 2 or 3 years, we've begun the development of Soluca foam technology. It's a really nice way for customers to save some money by lowering the density of their products and saving some money as well.
Dealing with these new technologies, do you lose a lot of money by trying to create these new technologies?
It's amazing how much money is put forth in product development. We're trying to stay a step ahead of our customers, and yeah, it is a big burden to try to be developing these type of technologies ahead of the market. But if you're not doing it, you're falling behind.
Okay. With plastics made solely out of a byproduct from oil, how has this affected the price of your plastic, and how have you been dealt with it to cut your costs?
Oil, the price per barrel of oil is is a huge driver in plastic cost. Whether or not the plastic is created from oil or not, natural gases would be the other fuel to make these plastics. But when natural gas is or when the price of oil goes up, usually the price of natural gas follows suit. So I would have to say that oil is a huge driver in the cost per pound of the resins that we buy. And as far as what we've been doing to combat those types of increases in price of oil, while we try to offer our customers opportunities to like increase the lengths of their production runs so that we can optimize our extrusion process and thereby try to reduce the impact of that elevating cost.
The raw material that you buy is a virgin material. What ways do you use that? Can you use the regrind again to produce another product?
The great question. We build a lot of products that are UL certified, meaning that usually there is a certain fire code that the product has to be able to pass, and in those cases we're only allowed to use a very small percentage of the plastic scrap or regrind. But there are also markets where, and we try to develop these markets as much as we can, where products don't need that type of fire rating, and then we're allowed to use regrind percentages up to 100%. So we try to minimize, any plastic headed toward the landfill.
With most of your raw material, is it mostly oil-based, or is that that natural gas?
It's another good question. PVC is a big part of our business, and PVC can be made by cracking with both natural gas or oil. So so I think it's kind of a catch-22 for a lot of polymers. They can be made either way. It just depends on which fuel is more or less expensive at the time.
All right. Thank you very much, Ryan.
Hey.